What's going on, guys? LoganJYA here, and today I come to you not as the Dry Kage, but as a proud Sprite Knight. And let me tell you why. Listen, we're having a rough time dealing with them tier elements. But you know what deck does a darn good job of dealing with them? You'd be surprised to hear that Sprite actually is pretty alright when it comes to dealing with them tier elements. And I'm going to show you just how I happen to do so with my particular build. I got a huge bunch of shoutouts to give. We give them throughout the deck profile. You'll see why, because there are some spicy techs in here that enable some real degeneracy that are going to leave those tier element players in tears. Guys, I know it's not a Drytron video. Hopefully you enjoy something a little bit different. And I want to give a quick shout out to any of my Drytron brethren watching this one right now. Give this deck a try. You may be surprised at how powerful it can be and how much fun you can have when you're playing it. I don't want to preface it too much, folks. Let's dive right into this Sprite Knight deck profile brought to you by yours truly. Let's get into it.
You know, as I stand here before you, I feel like Walter White, because this is not Drytron. But what this is a Sprite deck that's absolutely going to tear those tier elements to shreds, leaving them in tears. That is what our job is here to do today. I'm telling you guys, you are going to like this profile. I think it's as clean cut as a Sprite build can be, and it is meta ready. We have been testing it on stream back and forth relentlessly. It has led me to top in OTS, and I'm hoping that it'll lead me to top in future events when I have the darn chance to actually go to them. But I'm going to let you guys know 100% right now, this may not be tier element, but it does have the power to beat them. It may not be Drytron, but we can't really be playing Drytron right now, and that's why we got to pivot. We got to stay ready. And one thing that I really do enjoy about playing this deck is just the sheer power of one-card combos. When you play a two-card combo high ceiling deck for such a long time, you lose sight of the simple things in life, those being one-card combos in a gosh darn broken mess of a game. So without further ado, let's dive into this deck profile. Alright guys, we're going to run through the basics real quick. Even though these aren't Drytron monsters, hopefully you know what they do. We've got triple copies of the Sprite Blue, as well as triple copies of the Sprite Jet. Now, of course, you've got to be playing these guys at 3. They are the lifeblood of the deck, and there is no room to cut them. But you do only play one copy of the Carrot, your Spell and Trap Negate, and one copy of the Red. This fresh little nice miscut. I'm telling you, shout out to my boy Draco Moto. You just need one of each. You really don't need to play any more than that. You are able to recycle them quite easily, so that is the package of the Sprite monsters. But of course, you know, we have to play one of the strongest, most pivotal engines in the game at this current moment, and that is the Bystials. Listen, we hate them. As Drytron players, we hate them. But as Sprite players, we say, come on over, come hang out, come help us out, ripping them tier elements to shreds, banishing them from the graveyard so they can't resolve their effects. There's no better feeling in the world. That is why we employ the support of these mercenary dragons. We've got 3 copies of the Magnum Mutt, 2 copies of the Druid Swarm, and 1 copy of the Serenir, a 6-card package. Think about it like 6 DD Crows that are also massive big beat sticks. That's one thing that the Sprite monsters are not. That is big on attack points, but these guys sure as heck are. So we got to be sure to leverage them to the best of our abilities. They do help clear out games. Not only do they remove those cards from the grave, but they help clear out games and clear boards too. Now, the most powerful card in this entire strategy, triple copies of the Dimensional Shifter. And I have this up here with our core engine because this is a core engine card. Listen, you will hear a lot of people say that the best decks right now that aren't tier elements are any deck that can play Dimension Shifter. And you know, you may think that Sprite may not be one of those first decks that comes to mind, but you'd be surprised to learn that this deck does it better than most. And you'll see why at the end of this video when I explain the neat little interaction with a cool little guy that we can take advantage of that just makes Shifter that much better. But of course we're playing it at 3. If we see it going first or second, it is going to be a massive asset. And again, just stick around to the end and I'll explain why. Moving on from there, we've got triple copies of the Nimble Beaver. Remember how I was talking about 1-card combos? Yeah, this is one of them. And he is one of the best ones. My freaking goodness. So powerful. Gotta be maxing him out. We also play the 2 copies of the Angler. Listen, listen, listen. I'm not going to go over basic Sprite combos and logic with you, but you guys already should know that when you take a dump off your Sprint, you're sending the Angler, it's summoning out 2 more copies of the Beaver, and then you're setting yourself up for absolute travesty all over your opponent because you're going to be swarming that board and putting up those negates. That's why you got to play both of them though. You can't only play one because you need to summon one off the Beaver, and then you need to be able to send one off the Sprint. Just so you're all aware in case you're new to this, because I was new to it too relatively recently, but I am coming into it. I may not be a Sprite expert like I'm a Drytron expert, but I know the ropes. Anyway, we got 2 copies of the Swap Frog. It's what lets us make the Toad. You need no more than 2 since Ronan is banned. I think that goes without saying. And that is it for the monster lineup. We're going to move into the spells, and we're going to speed run through these joints real quick. We got triple copies of Sprite Starter. Remember what I was saying about those 1-card combos? Yeah, we got another one, baby. And this is one of the best ones in the deck. It is literally emergency teleport for the Sprites. Sure, it locks you out into level 2s and link 2s and rank 2s, but do you even gosh darn care? No, you do not. It may conflict with the Bystials a little bit, but if you're playing smart and you're being smart, it won't be a problem. So yes, of course, triple copies of the starter. And continuing out there with the Sprite cards, we do got 1 copy of the Smashers, which is one of the key pieces of removal that the Sprite engine has access to. I think you guys know what this does. Non-targeting banish is pretty flipping good. You ever read this card called Spellbook of Fate? Imagine that. It's pretty much the same darn thing now that I think about it. They're both quick play spells. Anyway, I digress. Another quick play spell we have here is our boy Gamma Burst. Oh, baby. See, you're going to be using this a lot to line up your route to game. You have to trust me on this one, guys. You need to be playing the Gamma Burst, especially if you're playing this deck how I have it built to be played. You want to be playing the Gamma Burst so you can clear out those games super duper easy without really having to rely on pieces in the extra deck or a big fat beefy monster on board. You can just leverage our boy Gamma Burst and go in there and take him to town. Trust me on that one. You definitely want to be playing that Gamma Burst at 1. Moving on from there, we got some staple cards up in here. Triple copies of Pot of Prosperity for consistency reasons. Listen, we are playing one of the most consistent decks in the game currently, but why not make it more consistent? We really don't care too much about the cost. Like I said earlier, it can be difficult to close out games sometimes. Sometimes you just need to reach for that perfect piece, and that's what Pot of Prosperity is here to do. On top of that, we got triple copies of the Triple Tactics Talent. This is one of the best cards in the deck by far. I use it countless times. More often times than not, we're using it to steal or to rip. Seldom do I ever find myself going for the draw 2 effect. It's kind of similar in Drytron. If you've already committed to using your names, there's not much of a purpose in actually using its draw 2 effect, because what are you going to draw into that's going to bail your butt out? But hey, we stay ready on that one. Just remember, guys, you don't want to be conflicting with your Pot of Prosperity effect. So of course, if you've prosed earlier in the turn, you cannot use the talents to draw cards. I think that goes without saying, but just in case you needed a little reminder. And of course, we do employ the support of the 1 copy of Called by the Grave. Bringing the spell lineup to a close, we've only got a few trap cards here, so I'll keep it brief. Triple copies of Imperm, because it's another one of the best hand traps we can play that actually puts in work against the Tearlaments, as well as those disgusting Flunderies, if you even want to rationalize them, mention them. Hey man, we gotta acknowledge what's out there. We stay ready though. We got Imperm for that Kitkalos. We got Imperm for that Flwandereeze Robinia. And get that joint out of here. And another cool thing about Imperm is it can be a card ripped right off the top that actually does a darn thing. Use it to take out that Rukalos. Make sure you don't gotta worry about it anymore. Stay ready, my friends. And then finally, we got the 1 copy of the Sprite Double Cross. Keeping this in the main deck because so many times when you win that die roll, you're gonna want to be searching this guy out. Also, if you're able to break your opponent's board, it's another good insurance piece to tack onto your end board to ensure victory. And it is what enables your triple Toad Negate play. For those of you who don't know how to do that play, I'm sure there are other creators who have done a better job and done it first before I have. If you guys really want to see Sprite combos from me, you can let me know in the description. But I'm just here to share with you the build that works best for me. And yeah, that's it for the main deck. 40 cards even. It's really clean and crispy right here, guys. 40 cards. Oh, it just feels so nice to be playing such a clean, consolidated, and consistent package. But let's move on to the extra deck, all right, guys? Starting things off, we've got 2 copies of the Gigantic Sprite. You don't have to correct me on my pronunciations in the comments, by the way, unless you really want to, but I'm going to continue to call him Gigantic Sprite because that's what I like to say. This guy does get pretty huge when he's got a Link monster attached to him as a material. He jacks himself up to 3,200 attack points. You don't want to sleep on that effect because it does come up, especially when you're trying to close out those games. But outside of that, he'd be summoning cards from the deck. What more is there to say? More oftentimes than not, you're going to be bringing out your boy Swap Frog and using him to make it totally awesome. But other times, you're going to be wanting to use him to get into engine pieces. Get a blue, get a jet, get yourself that Gamma Burst, go for game. It's that simple sometimes. So we stay ready. 2 copies of Gigantic. You don't want to put him at 1. You got to have him at 2. But you do want to have the 1 copy, the totally awesome. No need for more than 1. You're never going to be summoning more than 1. So you only need to play the 1. But it is one of the most powerful negates in your extra deck. You line them up with the Swap Frogs. It's pretty simple. Oh, baby. Are you guys ready? This is my favorite card in the extra deck. I can't take credit for this idea. Shout out to my boy Keds for this one. But oh, baby, look at this guy right here. Look at this Giga Chad. Even the Drytron, Drykage energy finds its way into Sprite. Look at this. This is our boy Herald of Pure Light. That's right. We're employing the support of the Heralds here. And I'll explain more about him at the end of the video, alright guys? Just trust me, if you've read him before, you know what we're doing with him. But if you don't, just get excited because I'll show you at the end. We got one copy of the number 29 Mannequin Cat. It goes with some of our side deck pieces, but it's also not a bad card just to throw on your end board, especially if you're trying to control the game state. You know, you set up, say you break your opponent's board, but your Prosperity couldn't go for a game. You're playing against a Tearlament player, you know they're going to be summoning darks. Guess what? How about you get to tag in a dark from your deck for 100% free when they summon one? That sounds pretty good to me. That's one thing that Mannequin Cat lets you do. It also gives us powerful access to some of the best cards in our side deck. I will show you those a little bit later. I don't have that much room for flex spots as far as rank 2s go, but I did choose to play the Soul Sweeper, alright? Just as a form of generic removal. He's a Farfa Banish, in case you didn't know. He's pretty useful in that regard. Now, I will flag one thing. There is a rank 2 that I do not yet own, but I would be playing. It is that guy, the Mosquito. He's one of the fake number monsters. He lets you go for game in some of the easiest ways by burning your opponent with the hallucination counters. I can't remember its exact name right now, but I'll have it in the pinned comments, guys. You definitely want to be playing one of that. It came out in the Battles of Legend. Last Exceed we play is the one copy of Zeus. You will rarely find yourself making this card nowadays because, yeah, all the tiers trigger off of his effect, but any rogue matchups, we still got to stay ready, so we do still play the Zeus. Moving on to the links, triple copies of Sprite, Elf, the most powerful card in the extra deck. This card's going to 1 or getting banned someday. I tell you, I think it's up there with the likes of the Nightmare Goblin. It is that flipping good. Bringing back 2s, level 2s, rank 2s, link 2s. He can do it all, my friend, so trust me, you want to be playing that Sprite Elf, and you want to be playing him at 2, actually, because you want to cut one of these for that hallucination counter guy, the fake number monster. He's a low number, I just can't remember right now. It's going to come back to me later. Anyway, one copy of Sprite Sprint, an essential piece of your main combo lines when you're going for your totally awesome plays. You're taking a dump, you're sending that angler, you're summoning out those beavers, you got to be playing him. This is another essential tech piece. Shout out to my boy CJ Daniels for bringing this one up to me, of how important it is to play the Nightmare Cerberus. Do you know why? You might not know why, let me tell you. You use it to pop Baguskas, okay? When you're playing against the Tearlament players, and let's say you hit him with the Shifter. Oh yeah, it's feeling good. But you know, it doesn't feel good when they summon a darn Baguska on you. But you don't have to care if that dingus threw it in the main monster zone. All your guys are inherent specials. Slap them down onto the field, link 2 into Cerberus. It's a little costly, but you get that nasty Baguska off the board, and then proceed to play and rip them to shreds. That is why we use our friend Nightmare Cerberus. We also use our friend the Dark Charmer here to tag in our opponent's Magnamuts from the grave, bring them on over to our side. Or maybe they got a Merly in there we want to borrow. Yeah, you bring that guy over here for us. That's what Dark lets us do. And of course he's another 2, which means we can take advantage of him. We could even overlay him for a Gigantic if we wanted to. The last 2 pieces in our extra deck, 1 copy of IP Masquerena and 1 copy of Mech Knight Avermax, because there's a lot of decks that just can't deal with this guy, especially when he's made with this chick. And there's a lot of end boards where you're going to have this chick, and you're either going to be tagging her in for another copy of Sprite Elf. Say your opponent hits you with that Lightning Storm. Oof. You got to switch it up real quick. Hit him with the IP. Turn it into an elf that can't be destroyed. Very, very good. Or you tag it into the Avermax, and then you just put up a Towers monster that decks struggle to out. If you can get a free win off this guy, why wouldn't you summon him? So of course we are playing the Avermax. That is it for the extra deck. Let me show you the side deck real quick. I've got triple copies of the Psy-Frame Gear Gamma Bing chilling in here. This is mostly for the mirror. I don't bring this card in against Tier. Technically, you could use it to negate an effect of Fusing Grave or one of the Shizu cards doing a big mill, but I don't really like to do that. Again, it is mostly in here for the Rogue matchups, the Flawanderees matchups, and the Mirror match, okay, guys? And of course, you got the Driver to go with it, but F this guy. We don't really want him in here. You know what? I just realized I have a really cool copy of Driver that I should have broke out for this deck. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm going to show you this. I want to take an opportunity to break this guy out. Yeah, boy, look at that fresh guy right there. Yep, you know what I'm thinking, right? Let's get him in here. Nice. Even though they're not CR Gammas, I think that looks pretty good. Alright, moving on from there, we got the one thing that we need for time, and that's our boy Red Resonator. I know Team Sam did a pretty funny meme video the other day where he was summoning this in time, stalling for time. You know, we don't stall for time here, alright guys? We're Giga Chads. We only Natasha in time when we need to. Think about this as your Natasha, alright? You summon this off Gigantic if it's getting a little bit close to time, or you need to recover after you used a starter or something. That's why we rely on our boy Red Resonator here, alright? Listen, time rules suck. But we suck more if we don't stay ready for him. So we play the one copy of Red Resonator. Now, talking about that Mannequin Cat, right? We got our targets for her right here. We got the one copy of Chaos Hunter and the one copy of the Newman. Our boy Newman comes in against the tier elements. You just end on the Mannequin Cat in addition to your normal board. And this is another thing lets you lock them out. If they go for the Kick Kalos play to pop itself and summon from hand, bring this join out, alright? Just tell them no, alright? They're going for a Scarin from hand, you just tell them no. It's that simple. And then the Chaos Hunter has got a really cool interaction with the Mannequin Cat. I didn't know this, I had to have someone else explain it to me. But you basically, when you're playing against Flunder, and you actually don't want to be under Shifter, you use the Mannequin Cat, summon back their Shifter to their side of the field, and then you use it to bring out the Chaos Hunter. It's like you're not even playing under Shifter anymore. Nothing can be banished, so you're 100% safe to do your regular combo line. Pretty cool stuff. Moving on from there, we got triple copies of the Cosmic Cyclone. Blow out them back rows. Runic is still a strategy, especially those Runic Naturia decks. You gotta stay ready for them. We bring in those Cosmics, as well as any other back row strategy. I love having the second copy of Sprite Smashers in the side deck as another means of a going second card, okay, guys? Because this is an archetypal engine piece that helps you rip stuff to shreds. Now, we don't have to fear the Mystic Mine anymore, which is a wonderful thing, but there are still a lot of things that you may want to non-targeting banish, especially if they're problematic cards. So that's why we side deck the additional copy of Smashers, and seldom do people ever see it coming. The last cards in our side deck are dedicated to going first, and that's triple copies of the Solemn Judgment, and then the final copy of a Pointer of the Red Lotus at 1 for good reason, because it's absolutely insane. You guys may recognize these as some of those powerful trap cards in the game, and that is why we side deck them. For when we know we're going first, we make our end board that much stronger. Alright guys, I am going to wrap up the deck profile portion here, but there's one more thing that you know I got to show you, and that is that combo I alluded to earlier. Let's get into it. Alright guys, to wrap up this video, I'm going to show you one of my favorite interactions that this deck is able to pull off, and that abuses Mr. Dimensional Shifter. You know, some of everybody's least favorite cards of all time. I know as a Drytron player, I'm not super fond of this guy, but now we make him work for us. And what I'm going to show you how to do is actually reuse Shifter. And I alluded to this earlier, our boy Herald of the Pure Light is going to be our key enabler of this. And to do this play, you just need Shifter and any 2 Sprite names. Basically, if you Shifter your opponent and can put up a rank 2, you can reuse Shifter. It is that simple. But what I'm going to show you how to do it with is a Nimble Beaver, because it's going to really demonstrate the follow-up that you can lock up in addition to this. So this is a 2-card combo, but if we took the Shifter out of the equation, Nimble Beaver on its own is full Sprite combo, as I'm sure you're all aware. But what I'm going to show you is the cool little interaction with this guy here. So without further ado, let's get into it. Alright guys, for the super duper brief demonstration, what I'm going to show you is if we were going first and opened up the Shifter and the Beaver, especially going in blind, I would actually, more oftentimes than not, find myself going for this play, because if we're running against the tier elements, we don't want to run the risk of having them have that halveness if we're going for a normal Sprite line. It's actually a lot more beneficial to actually go for the Shifter. And if we want to be extra cheeky about it, we can go for the Beaver, and if they chain the halveness, then we chain the Shifter and make all their mills get banished, which feels really good. But yes, of course, the first thing we're going to do is go for that Beaver, go for that Shifter, and the Beaver is going to bring out our boy Nimble Angler out of the deck, alright? You could summon a Beaver too, but I prefer to leave the Beavers in deck, personally. Next, we overlay these 2 guys and summon out a Gigantic Sprite. We get to go a little bit further beyond since we started with Beaver, but if we started with Starter, we would probably find ourselves going for a bit more of a traditional route, just straight into our boy Herald. But right now, we're going to go for the Gigantic, and we're going to use his effect. Of course, any material detached will be banished. I'm going to put them back here to represent that, and we're going to bring out our boy Sprite Blue. Blue effect is going to give us Jet, and Jet effect can search any Sprite, spell, or trap out of the deck. Here you have options, right? So you have guaranteed follow-up access if the Gigantic lives, but if you want to be extra safe, you could grab a Starter here. Now, another thing you can do is you want to defend that Gigantic, you can actually grab the Double Cross. And say you're playing against the tiers and they normal summon a Reinhardt or a Scarin to try and, I think Scarin's 16. Anyway, let's say they summon something to try and swing over that Gigantic Sprite, which is a guaranteed follow-up piece in it of himself, because you can detach off him and summon again when your turn rolls back around. You could go for the Double Crossing and defend big time. So, for the sake of our example, we're going to add that Double Crossing to hand. It's a pretty darn good card, alright? Now, I do have to flag that you do have to have any one random jank card in your hand for this to work, but like I said, we're doing this with 2 cards for the demonstration. I'm just going to stick this imperm here for the sake of our demonstration. We're going to overlay our Sprite Blue and our Sprite Jet into the legendary Herald of Pure Light. That's right, we can't escape the Heralds. Yes, the spirit of the Dry Kage lives on vivaciously through these Sprite cards. We overlay that Herald of Pure Light onto these 2 guys, detach either material, doesn't really matter. I'm just going to use the blue. We add that shifter from the graveyard into our hand, and we take 1 card from our hand and shuffle it back into the deck. I'm just going to use that imperm for the sake of sake. Now, what did we do here, right? We shifted our opponent. Doesn't seem that great. But listen. If it's a tier player, what can they really accomplish under Shifter, especially when you got that nice double cross to protect your Gigantic? And why is that especially important? Well, let's say our turn rolls back around, alright? We end up dropping that Shifter again. You know what we can do? We can actually use the effect of our Gigantic, go right on back into the deck, summon out our boy Sprite Blue, summon out our boy Jet, and then use Jet's effect to grab one of my favorite cards in this deck, the Gamma Burst. Yo, Gamma Gamma. Listen. I want to do a quick little head count here of how much damage we've got on board. Switch all these boys to attack. We're looking at a nice mean well over 8,000 damage just with these boys on board. Listen, you take 14, you add it to this, you add it to any of them, you get minimum 2,000. 2, 4, 6, 8, who do we appreciate? Winning the game. That's what we appreciate. So you go bing, 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 bong, and you win. It is that simple. Listen, guys, this is a pretty simple combo line. It doesn't take much thought, but it's a pretty cool interaction that I want to show off to you guys, especially considering we're leveraging the support of a Herald in a Sprite deck. That's all I got for you guys. LoganJYA, Dry Kage, now Sprite Night. Signing off. Have a great day. I will see you chumps later. Peace.
心の隙間埋め